those who wanted to do the bad things in our community. And we swept about a number of gang members who were up the street then, and we saw a dramatic decrease in crime on the streets of the city of Yonkers. Sending a message to those who want to do the wrong thing, that we will work together in concert with each other to make sure that those who want to commit crimes and hold people hostage in their own homes are not given that opportunity. So today is a pivotal step as we all join together. We want our community to feel safe, and we want to be able to show the residents of our city and our county that we are committed to reducing the number of incidents in our streets, especially gang robbers. You all have read about it, you all read about it, you all report about it, increasing numbers of crime, not crime necessarily, but of gang activity, gangs causing crime. We have a pandemic, and we have a rise in gang activity. Here in Yonkers, I'd like to ask the commissioner to come up and give you some details. I'm assuming the commissioner will be first. Okay, great. And I want to say thank you to Commissioner John Mueller for putting this together and working hand in glove with our district attorney and our great district attorney, and of course the members of the FBI. So let Commissioner Mueller give to share the details. Commissioner.
Thank you, Mayor. I think probably the best thing to do is to start with the video. We had a high resolution video captured, and so I'll let you take a look at it, and then we can go into the details about how the arrest and how the investigation progressed. But let's start by just looking at the video. I think, they'll say a picture is worth 1,000 words, a video is worth even more, and you can see how violent that act was. So we'll start with this happened on June 17th, I believe, at around 9 o'clock in front of 171 North Broadway. It's important to note that this victim, who we blocked out his face, obviously, out of respect to him and the attack on him, he had nothing to do with anything. He was walking into the bodega just to get a soda. That's all he was, and I want people to remember that, because it's important that this could have been anybody. It could have been anybody in this room right now, that they chose to attack him based on absolutely nothing, and they left him for dead, essentially. I mean, and it's such a heinous act, and it's all part of the defendants that we're looking at here and the people that we've arrested. They're all part of one of our most violent gangs, the 300 Bloodhound Brims. We've had a number of issues with them, number of arrests, number of problems. We embody a precision policing model in Yonkers, and I know that our DA embodies a precision prosecution model. So the key is to go after the people that are driving most of the crime. So in this case, this was a great collaborative effort between the Safe Streets Task Force, Westchester County DA's office, the Yonkers Bureau of the DA's office, the FBI, and also the Westchester County Forensic Lab. Everybody came together. The video was taken. It was painstaking as to how they broke this video down, and it's going to put us in a very good position for convictions on this case. We went through everything. Our gang unit, our major case detectives, who we have here on hand today, worked very, very hard on this. And again, I have to give all the credit to the DA's office, because this happened on June 17th, and here we are now in the middle of August, and we already have grand jury indictments, which is why we're here to talk about it today. The indictments were unsealed on Friday. Now all of these defendants have been charged, and I just want to talk a little bit about this group in general. This group that you're seeing here, now this isn't the larger gang. These 14 people are responsible for 17 assaults, 30 robberies, and 10 firearm arrests. Just these 14 people. So it goes back to the whole point about precision policing and how you're focusing on the guys that are doing and driving the violence, is that when you go after these people that are committing this type of crime, and again, this is a person who simply went to the store for a soda, and he ended up being knocked unconscious. And I can't also say enough about how great our gang unit, the Yonkers gang unit is. They were, because they're so proactive and they're so good at their craft and they do such a good job with what they do, they were watching this gathering even before this happened, because this is a group that normally there's going to be trouble associated with them. And you know what? They nailed it and they were right. So they were already watching them on camera, on video, surveillance, and making sure to see that everything went the way it was. When you look at that video, he was left for dead. That's really what it comes down to. He was left for dead. We are grateful that although he suffered severe injuries, they knocked teeth out of his mouth. He had bleeding on the brain. He's gonna make it, he's okay, but still, I think it really strikes to the sensibility of everybody when you talk about how bad this could have been, how this could have been, ended up in a murder and a death. A completely senseless death when you look at the fact that, again, he was just going to get something to drink at the bodega, and that's how it ended up. So I want to introduce the DA. We were, again, are very grateful with respect to how quickly we got this to grand jury. We are hoping that we're going to equally get it as quick to get to trial or get pleas on these cases. And you know, we're sending a very strong message in Yonkers, as Mayor Spano has always said, has always supported us with respect to, we want to keep crime down by focusing on the people that are driving the crime numbers the most. So I'm gonna hand it off to the DA. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. This was a shockingly brutal attack. As you saw, it seriously injured the victim, and it brought fear to the community in Yonkers because of its brazenness. What I'm struck by when I look at that video and listen is the bystanders who are saying, stop. That's what the community is asking us to do. They asked us, law enforcement, to take a swift, cohesive, and strategic response, and that's exactly what we did. And I'm very proud to stand here today with our excellent law enforcement partners, because this only happens with collaboration at every level, local, county, and federal. The Yonkers Police Department, of course, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, Hudson Valley Safe Streets Task Force, and together we worked to identify and charge 13 individual members of the Bloodhound Gang who we allege perpetrated this attack. And during these arrests, we should note the Yonkers Police Department executed a number of search warrants, which led to the recovery of 2 additional firearms. And we'll never know, thankfully, what harm those guns could have inflicted on our community, because they're no longer on the streets. So I'd like to thank Yonkers Mayor Mike Spano for his support consistently, the Yonkers Police Department, and Commissioner Mueller for his excellent leadership, and all of the members of his team who worked so hard to make this happen. And a very special thank you and shout out to my staff of the District Attorney's Office, who also worked painstakingly, from the Violent Criminal Enterprise Bureau and the Yonkers Local Branch Office and my supervisory team, for their dedication and commitment. Last week, as many of you know, we announced the launch of a new initiative to combat gun crimes and gang violence alongside our federal, county, and local law enforcement partners, including the Yonkers Police Department and the FBI Task Force. Our focus is on utilizing all available investigative tools and techniques to build cases against violent offenders, as Commissioner Mueller said, with precision policing and prosecution. We will prosecute these cases at the state and federal level, and will work together to build the strongest case possible to have the greatest impact on public safety. Violence will not be tolerated here in Westchester County. We will use all resources at our disposal to ensure that people feel safe in their homes and communities. Thank you.
at least come up and say a few words. One of the council members who is representing the city council today, if you come up to Shane Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. Hello, everyone. It's an interesting morning because it's a Monday morning, and here we are at a press conference talking about the violence in our community that's been plaguing our community. But it's interesting because we're here not just talking, but we're showing results of what happens when you have a strong and unified police department and DA's office who work hand in hand, and the FBI, to make sure that our communities are going to be safe. This is what we see as a result of that. And so on behalf of the City Council, I'm proud to stand here and congratulate everyone standing behind me for their hard work. But more importantly, I'm proud to stand here because we're sending a message to everyone in our city and our county that we do not tolerate violence. It's unacceptable. It's undescribable how much pain you're putting families through when we sit by and watch these things happen in our community. But we're taking our communities back. We're stopping the violence, and this is just the beginning, and I'm very proud of that. So congratulations to everyone, and let's keep our community safe.
You know, you see a lot happening around the world, certainly around the country. One of the things you don't see happening here in the City of Yonkers, one thing you don't see happening here in the Westchester County District Attorney's Office is, what you do see, rather, is a proactive group of individuals who go out there each and every single day, and they are looking to solve problems, they're looking to solve crimes, and they're looking to get individuals like this off the street so that the people who live in our communities, we go up Elm Street, you know, we hear a lot about Elm Street. 99% of the people that live on Elm Street are good, law-abiding, loving citizens who should not be held captive in their own homes because of individuals like this. So with that, the district attorney is here, the police commissioner is here. Anybody that might have any questions for anyone of us?
Mayor, has any one of those have been released on bail?
Yes, unfortunately, there was what I would consider, again, law enforcement professional to judge, extremely low bail was imposed by a New Rochelle City Court judge at the arraignment. They came back in for the indictment. They were indicted, which is, as people know, it's a higher level of guilt. And based on some of the criminal histories of this group, there's 4 predicate felons here. So we were hoping for higher bail. There are 5 that are still out that were they made bail immediately. But I can't hold the Judge Zuckerman, who presided over the indictments, responsible, because there is no provision in New York State bail law for dangerousness. We're only one of 3 states in the union, by the way, that doesn't have a dangerous provision in it. And I think it's something the legislature should consider. Other than us, it's Arkansas and Pennsylvania. Just 3. The other 27 states all have a provision for dangerousness. And I think that, to me anyway, in my years of experience, it does make sense to have that provision involved with respect to a judge's ability to consider bail.
You talked about the swiftness of the indictments following the incident, and you mentioned the people on the video yelling "stop." Tell us about the significance of, obviously there were people from the community who must have come forward with some information. So tell us about the impact of that, and is that community has it reached a boiling point at this point with violence? I
can tell you that our community, and I know the mayor will say this, we have the best community. I know we're biased, but we do. We have the best community, and they've always been disgusted by actions like this. They've always been outraged by actions like this. I don't know if you can find anybody to raise their hand and say, no, I don't think that's such a bad thing. It's awful. As far as the cooperation, I'm not exactly sure. I know that there are times in certain neighborhoods where there is a fear factor with respect to getting involved, and that's another aspect of discovery law, that now the defense may have access to a witness's information. And listen, people have to live in neighborhoods that they've witnessed something from. I can't necessarily hold them and hold any blame towards them because they're afraid for their own safety. So that's another provision we may want to consider adjusting when it comes to some of the changes in the legislature.
Just because you asked about bail reform, a couple of years ago, the state legislature passed some bail reform laws. laws that were enacted. We all know how it was done. It was done, I don't remember if it was in the middle of the night, but certainly it was done in a budget bill. And we woke up one day and we had a budget and we had bail reform. I think it's pretty safe to assume, I'm sure the experts will agree, that we saw an increase in certain areas of crime as a result. It should have been, listen, I support bail reform, but we should have done it with the experts, people in the front lines, people like myself, or the District Attorneys Association, the judges. Most of us, and I'm not gonna speak for the District Attorney, but most of us were really as surprised as anybody when these laws were passed. And we are now dealing with consequences. There needs to be some reform to the reforms in order to protect those. Because, you know, when I'm driving up and down, going to the tree streets, which has lately been the area where we've had the most gun violence of late, with the lowest, with the age of the offenders that are teenagers, it is quite clear to me that what many of these reforms did were take individuals who felt safe in their own homes, made them prisoners of their home, and took those who might want to do bad things in our community and gave them the freedom to run wild. That's not acceptable.
I just want to clarify some of the numbers. So there are 14 members of this gang that have been indicted, right? And 5 of them are out on bail, 9 of them are in jail right now, or?
Yes, so when you break it down, as you can see, there's the blend of adolescent offenders, which is those defendants that are under the age of 18. That's why we haven't shown their faces. And then there are the adults that are 18 and older. So there is a combination of people. The bail was set at what I consider to be a low level at the arraignment. And then after the indictments came down and were unsealed, bail didn't get raised. Again, there's no provision for dangerousness in New York State bail law, so you can't fault judges for that. I would also say the issue, and the mayor touched on it, was the adolescent offender issue that we have, where it's what I call a perennial first offender. So you get arrested, there's, you know, when I say 17 assaults, 30 robberies, and 10 firearm arrests with this group alone, and most guys here are, you know, 21, 20, 18. What that tells you is with that many charges, there were many of these cases that were adjudicated in family court, and they were when they were under 18. So that's something really important to notice. We understand that people deserve a second chance. We understand that kids do silly things, but when you're arrested with 2 guns and 3 guns, and you keep on getting released, and it keeps getting sent to family court, they didn't make a change in the family court law. That's how I see it. That, you know, when they did raise the age, they didn't change family court law. So if a judge brings a person, an underage, a person under 18 in for a gun arrest, he makes a decision just on that arrest, not on the other 2 gun arrests, maybe a stabbing, maybe another gang assault. So when the judge is looking at it, he only sees the one. So that person's a perennial first offender. My suggestion is change the adolescent offender and family court law to allow an in-camera hearing in the judge's chambers between the prosecution and the defense to see if they can unseal those records. Because I think the judge is not making an informed decision if they're only looking at the charge that's right in front of them. They need to look at the entire criminal history. I mean, criminal history is a predictor. We have people on this, that we have defendants that have been arrested for 2 and 3 guns, and then they end up getting arrested for a murder. I don't think that's anything anybody wants, but until that law is changed, where, again, it has nothing to do with the police, people should understand that too. It's simply giving the judges the ability to take a look at the entire criminal history, that other than the charge there, to say, maybe this case should go to youth court of criminal court as opposed to going to family court. We're not asking to get involved in it, we're just asking to have the judge have the insight and allow to look at the entire history to make an informed decision as to whether or not a defendant should stay in youth part of criminal court or kick the family court.
Along the same lines, to the district attorney, can you tell us about the potential sentences that some of these defendants could face?
Sure. I just want to clarify though real quick on the numbers. So there are 4 adults out on bail. All of the rest of the adults and at this time, the youthful offenders, I believe, are in custody. They're facing significant sentences. Many of them are facing mandatory minimums because of their criminal histories. And that is something that would normally go into a bail determination, because obviously if you're facing significant sentencing exposure once you've been indicted, clearly a strong case because of the video and the painstaking work identifying what each perpetrator did. That's, even without a dangerousness standard, that's a significant risk of flight. People have a motive to not reappear because they know what they're facing, and that's what our office argued to the judges, even without a dangerousness standard. I will add that I too am in favor of adding, having some component where judges can take into account dangerousness in determining bail. I think that bail reform is absolutely what we needed. I think we have to be careful if it is added in, that dangerousness doesn't become a proxy for race, which is what people are concerned about and why some people oppose it, and I completely understand that, but I think there are ways of dealing with that concern through real data and transparency, and seeing and monitoring closely and making public what we're doing, what prosecutors are doing, what judges are doing, and dealing with it in that way, as opposed to just eliminating what is obviously a need, I think, in our criminal justice system.
Now, the other ones that are held but did not make bail, why? Because they couldn't afford bail, or because they've been held without bail?
A combination. We can make, and this is all public information, so we can release to all of you, I believe, a sort of accounting of what the bail packages are that were set by the judge for each defendant. And you'll see that in some cases they were remanded, and in a few cases they were held without bail. But in many cases it's just that the bail was set at a higher amount and they weren't able to make that bail. But we can provide that information to you shortly after this to the press. That's all public information.
Thank you. If there are no more questions, that's to be the end of the conference, and I have additional information for you afterwards. Thank you, everybody.